Right, okay, let's move on to Manchester United against Sunderland. Another midweek spent on the training ground for Ruben Amorim to put everything right. I think maybe they're getting a little bit frustrated about the fact they haven't now got enough games to occupy themselves with such a big squad. So they've looked to try and organise a friendly in Saudi Arabia mid-season, Crook.
Can I go off for a cup of tea here while he has his 10-minute rant now?
Do you know what? Genuinely, obviously I didn't look at the running order because I never do, but I was hoping that we wouldn't have to discuss Manchester United against Sunderland, that mid-table clash this
so
weekend.
Professional.
I really didn't see that United would be a massive story. I mean, listen, the Saudi Arabia thing is another embarrassment, isn't it, for the football club? I think Martin Samuel highlighted in his column this week that really the most damning indictment of where United are as a club is they're not in Europe, and that hasn't happened too often in the last 30 years. So the fact they're going to try and fill that void by going off and just making a few more quid for the Glazer family by playing these games in Saudi Arabia is just a sad reflection on the football club, really. But I do think this is a big game against Sunderland at the weekend. The Black Cats, 5th in the Premier League table, really well coached, really good recruitment this summer, particularly the goalkeeper. Two things at the moment you can't really level at Manchester United, and the powers that be keep telling us that Ruben Amorim is not under pressure. He's got to be under pressure. His record is lamentable, and the only reason he's not under pressure, in my opinion, is because Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada, who hired him, are trying to save their own skin.
And because they can't pay him off until the 1st of November. Is that correct? Is that how we understand it?
Yeah, we understand it's cheaper to pay him off once he's clocked a year in charge. And again, it's going to be interesting to see how many points he accumulates in the calendar year. Would it be enough to survive in the Premier League and avoid relegation?
Look, it's very difficult to defend his record. There's no doubt about it. But what you have to do, I think, especially if you're Manchester United, is try and think, how do we plot a course forward here? Because we can't keep chopping and changing, and there are no obvious candidates to come and replace him. I mean, that they've thrown their lot in behind this guy, so let's see how it develops. They've brought Malacia back in from the cold. I wonder if he has a role to play now this season.
Can't be any worse than Dorgu, can he?
Well, I mean, Dorgu gets into some great positions. We say this every week as well, so it's a little bit boring for people. He gets into great positions on that left-hand side, but, you know, he struggles to deliver, which is a problem because that's the key area where Ruben Amorim wants to create chances from. He wants those wing-backs to get high up the pitch and cause problems for the opponents. He actually does that a lot, Dorgu. He just can't get his final ball into where it needs to be so that they can score goals, and scoring goals is a massive, massive problem. Sunderland have only lost once this season. They're up to the dizzying heights of 5th in the Premier League. 3 wins out of 6. Their only defeat to Burnley away from home. They're 1 point off Southampton's total for the entirety of last season. They will not be fazed either, will they, by going to Old Trafford, Scott Minto?
No, look, it's a perfect time to go to Old Trafford, isn't it? The way Manchester United are, flip-flopping a bit like someone else. 1 week they play well and 1 week they don't. It's the perfect time. And do you know what? They've had a great start to the season. I think fixtures have been quite kind to them, but they're a promoted club. When you think of just a few seasons ago, they were in League One, let alone the Championship. And Reggie Labrie, the job he's done, nothing short of sensational. To be fair to Crookie, in the summer, and I was listening when I was away to the pod, he was saying they're building a really good squad here. When they went up in that Championship playoff final day, I thought, you know what, they'll struggle to get probably this amount of points out the whole season. Their recruitment has been absolutely brilliant. I think the win at home against West Ham was really important. I think they'll be disappointed to have lost and played badly in the way that they did. Their only loss in the league. But since then, they've bounced back. Home form, absolutely key. But going to Old Trafford, if they do score that first goal, then, listen, the crowd won't be happy there, I'm sure. Roof's in goal, very good. But Granit Xhaka, what a signing. And you can just imagine him, not just what we see on the pitch, but off the pitch, the leader he is, the standards that he'll set. And I'm leaning towards Crookie at the moment. And he called it very, very early that they will stay up.
Yeah, well, I listen, I hope they do, because they've worked really hard behind the scenes, and we know a few people there that have been putting together a plan for staying in the league. I spoke to Crook about this at the end of last season when I sort of met up with some of the recruitment team ahead of the playoffs. They they were making two plans. They were getting ready for life back in the Championship and an assault on trying to win it, and they were making a plan just in case they got up into the Premier League. They've put those plans into place, and they've done very well. Regis Lebris has managed to pick up back-to-back wins in the Premier League before your man Ruben Amorim. That's pretty impressive, I think. Also, I just think there's this extra little bit of sort of. I think they'll be a little bit disappointed. They didn't beat Aston Villa, because actually I thought Aston Villa that day were there for the taking, and they had a player sent off, petulant. Okay, we can argue out whether it was a red card or not. It obviously probably was, but it was a soft one, and I think they would have been even further up the food chain had they had won that. Look, it's not all going to be smooth for them. There's adrenaline at the start. It works well when you're a newly promoted club and you come into the league and people don't really know much about you and how you're going to construct your attacks. And then as time goes on, people work out what you do and they defend and change accordingly. So let's see how they get on. But they know they've got a great opportunity at Old Trafford this weekend, because it's not the place it once was.